Hi, welcome to the Bryce Eddy Show. So, hey, today my guest is Carol Lieberman, and we're going to talk a little terrorism. She's America's psychiatrist and, kind of the leading expert on how we're dealing with the new world we are coming into here. And I am anxious to have this conversation. So, Carol, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Hey, so this is perfect timing for me because I've been talking this week, of course, about the war that we are in with Iran and some of the other things that we've been doing to kind of shake the world stage. And my concern with the Biden administration and with the Democrat administrations that have really allowed in, and we know this because I've done some border enforcement work. We were embedded with the sheriff's department. We were seeing who was coming over the border in the previous administration and all of the stuff that was happening. And we were catching people that were from the Republic of Georgia and from the Middle East and people that were just coming over through our border. And so we know, and there's so much intelligence surrounding how many people are here that have potential terror ties, and we know that there are cells all over the place, both things that have been infiltrated to even people that have been radicalized here. And with the recent New York activities and those bombing of those protesters and the IEDs and all the stuff that's happening, the shooting, there's synagogues that are being attacked right now. This is the new normal. And this is, kind of, we had a respite from all these things, and now we're in this world. So I'm excited to have you on. First, tell me about your kind of bio background, and then let's get into some of these details and how we think about this stuff.
Okay, sure. Let's see. Well, first of all, I became a psychiatrist. I trained, I was the chief resident at NYU Bellevue, which is the center of crazy in New York. And I'm a New Yorker born and bred, which is why when 9/11 happened, even though I had moved to California by then, my heart was still in New York. It still is in New York. And that's when I decided to become the terrorist therapist. I mean, I didn't have the name for it at the beginning, but I decided I wanted to help people cope with terrorism, but also help people, warn people about terrorism. And when 9/11 happened, I admit that I really knew very little about terrorism, but I quickly, learned a lot. And I went to all different conferences and spoke to people who had been in the field for a long time. And really, what's happening now, what you're talking about, was foreseen back at 9/11. In particular, they knew, these experts in terrorism knew that the way that terrorists would take over America, which of course is what they have planned to do for over 1,000 years, is not just by 9/11s, but by gradually infiltrating in politics and in media and in education. And that is exactly what has been happening. And and meanwhile, Americans, for the most part, just seem totally complacent, totally in denial. This is all like a surprise, and even now they don't really want to believe it. These different attacks after the Iran war started. So we have the Austin attack, and we have the one in New York that you were referring to, and then the synagogues. And people are still not willing to acknowledge that this is a long-standing plan, that the terrorists, they weren't kidding, Iran in particular, when they were saying death to America, death to Israel. They weren't kidding, folks. It's like nobody wanted to believe them. And so now, it's still really hard. I mean, like you said, now this is the new normal, but it's like people, I mean, it is, you're right, of course, but we can't let it be the new normal. I mean, at some point, people have to wake up and start, realizing we have to do something about it. And, of course, Obama, he was the worst president when it came to terrorism. He grew up in madrasas. He learned, he drank the Kool-Aid. And then he was, really running Biden's terms. And so So we have had, and they purposely let people in. I mean, even when Biden surrendered in Afghanistan, and they brought over 80,000 Afghanis, Afghans, however you say it.
Yeah.
Um, and with the excuse that, well, these are people who were helping Americans, and so they're our friends, so we have to bring them here. And of course that's not true. I mean, even at best, there are people, even for those who aren't per se terrorists, in cells right now all over America. um, they came here with from a very different society, and with very different um, ethics, and that it's okay to rape kids, for example, in Afghanistan. And so they're having trouble with coping with our laws. So in so many different ways, as you were saying, whether it's crossing the border, or coming from Afghanistan, or being radicalized here, there are all these different ways that there are terrorists. It's like, that's the cool thing to be,
Yeah, it's gosh, it's really interesting. I've been talking about this stuff for a lot of years, right? And when I say the new normal, I mean, I guess I hate using that phrase because that was like it sounded like a throwback from COVID and some of those times. Um, but what it is we have this we here in America, we were unbelievably safe for decades and decades and decades, unusually safe. And what it was is we built a civilization that for a while we were a high trust society. We cleaned things up. We had good law enforcement. Everything was well organized and stabilized. And then, but that's not the common state of the world. We created that. And
Right.
then we went about essentially, tearing the house down around us by, our actions in other countries. And by that, I mean, not winning the wars that we should have won, allowing things to be endless wars, perpetuating things, also placing the idea, you mentioned cultures there. We put the idea, in our heads. We look at things through a Judeo-Christian lens, and we imagine that everybody must. And you talked about like the rape culture and things like that, and some of those cultures that do not value human life the way we do not consider women important, do not have boundaries when it comes to children. I mean, there's sexual depravity that exists. I mean, there's all of these things that are almost inconceivable for us, because even if you are an atheist and you don't believe in God, you still grew up in a culture where we have these standards that are embedded that you can't totally escape from. And yet we've decided we're going to import all of these people here, or we're going to, and I do believe that there's nefarious reasons why we had open borders, of course, and there's plenty of evidence to suggest that. But here we are in this world, and now people are having to face the fact that things aren't as safe as they were.
Well, yes, especially when you have a lot of people going around defund the police.
Yeah.
I mean, we are really, I feel we're at a precipice. Things can either go really, really badly, faster, than they have been going badly. Or we can, get things together. Certainly, I mean, fortunately, we have President Trump, and I mean, he is trying to, I mean, that's the whole MAGA movement, but and mostly people, actually, I was just reading a statistic that 81% of people are for the war, or for the military. And yet there are some people who are still kind of, you know, well, being traitors, being, not really, not having their heart, not being patriotic enough. That's one of the things that is so important for any country. If you lose your patriotism, your love of your country, whether it's America or France or the UK or Germany, that's how the terrorists are taking over in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to, we have to really have a little more discipline here, a little more, coming out and showing our caring, and realizing that we can't keep going the way we're going. Everything from from it's all kind of together. Like it's been there's been decay for quite some time, and it's just sort of happening at a faster pace now. I remember years ago, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I remember driving my car and hearing on the radio something about in some town that there were going to be no more welcome baskets. Do you remember hearing that? It wasn't like, it wasn't like New York or California or a major place. It was some smaller place, but they were not going to have welcome baskets, I think, because of the money or because of people didn't want to go around, whatever. And I said to myself then, this is the beginning of the end. If we can't maintain our welcome baskets, where are things going to go from here?
Yeah, how funny. Yeah, I mean, we've watched this wholesale destabilization. We are coming into this really paradigm shift where we have dangers. I'm here in Nashville right now, and I split my time here, and so I was over the weekend noticing it's becoming the high season for tourism here. It's also spring break here. People are in town, having a great time. They shut down part of Broadway now, but the police presence is definitely ramped up. They don't normally have their Metro SWAT teams out, but they did. And so I'm glad to see that, by the way, because I think that's necessary. And I think cities who are wise are going to be doing those kind of increased presence more. But it's definitely indicative that something has shifted, something has changed. You've got now the guys in full battle gear and with rifles out walking the streets, and there's something that's sad about that, because we did that to ourselves. We allowed incompatible cultures to come here. I mean, Islam and that it's number one, and this can be offensive to a lot of people, but it's not a religion of peace if you look at their doctrine and the way that they look at the world. But they're the people are it's a conquest style. And that's what we're going to be living under unless we get to be very, very strong again and recognize that it's incompatible with Western culture. And we need to make sure that our identity is really, really strong and we are really, really safe. Otherwise, our destruction is imminent. So given that, you're called America's psychiatrist for a reason here. Let's talk about, how do we deal with this? What do you recommend given this new world order right now?
Well, I have, since 9/11, I have been, every year I work to do things. Devote work. I'm not like unpaid work, but I devote myself to doing things, have been devoting myself to doing things to wake people up. I've written 2 books on terrorism. I have a podcast called The Terrorist Therapist Show. I do, I actually help people, America first because of 9/11, but then in France and England, and I was just over in Israel, volunteering, helping them deal with 10/7 and all that. And of course, in Israel, they are aware, they are awake. They know what terrorists are all about, but, as compared to like our country. But and that is the most frustrating part, that people refuse to acknowledge this, but to acknowledge that they are in increasing danger unless they start to do something. So what can we do? Well, the first thing that we can do is to acknowledge that, saying like the things that you just said, and that Islam isn't compatible with the Judeo-Christian way of life. I mean, that's the exact description. Their idea is to either make you submit to Sharia law or kill you, all the non-believers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah, convert, pay up, or die. I mean, those are our choices. It's not, Christianity is unique in that we'll let people, live together and experience these things. And, we're not a top down kind of approach. We're a bottom up approach, but that is not true of Islam.
yes. And yet, you get, if you say anything bordering on that, you're an Islamophobe.
Yeah.
This is racist. I mean, that's what they have been using against us for all these years, to try to make us feel guilty for being racist, because we don't want people in our country who believe in the things, who want to cut our head off, basically. It's
yeah. Excuse us for that. Sorry.
So the first one of the things is to make sure that we elect leaders who are very aware of this. Certainly Trump at the top, that is really saving our country. But not just Trump. I mean, we need to be careful about this in dog catcher positions. I mean, small positions in every town. Because as I was saying earlier, that is how they have been getting higher and higher on the totem pole in politics and education and media and so on. We have to be aware of that, not necessarily to be prejudiced against people just because of their religion per se. I mean, you certainly not all. I always have to say on my radio show, on my podcast, not all terrorists are Muslims, and not all Muslims are terrorists. So there, I've said it. But
just the majority, but whatever. All right, Bryce, Eddy here. Hey, so you have seen the news. The world is in chaos. We have all kinds of geopolitical drama right now on the world stage, and we are indeed in a second Cold War. So I want to talk to you today about protecting your household's future, starting with your finances. The signs could not be clearer. Gold has surged past $44.50 an ounce, and silver is blowing past $80. That's a historic record for both of those. And the biggest names right now on Wall Street are predicting even more growth due to all of the economic events. Their price targets are climbing as high as $6,000 on gold, $100 on silver. On top of this, we're seeing more and more instability, and nations are trying to undermine America's influence and dollar dominance. That's why I've partnered with American Independence Gold. Buy gold, folks. This company is veteran owned, and they give back, donating proceeds to Tunnel to Towers in honor of our first responders and heroes. And here's the opportunity for my listeners and supporters. You can receive up to $10,000 in free gold and silver credited to your account with qualifying purchases, of course. That's real physical gold and silver, tangible assets you can hold in your hands to defend your wealth. Don't wait until it's too late. Go to BryceEddyGold.com. That's BryceEddyGold.com, or call 888-670-7011. Again, that's 888-670-7011. Take action today. Protect your family, strengthen your future, because freedom and security are not handed to us. They are preserved and fought for by the choices we make. This is Bryce Eddy for American Independence Gold. Freedom isn't given, it's secured.
Right. So we have to, it's an unfortunate truth. Same thing with like parents talking to kids about terrorism and talking about the war. A lot of times parents haven't wanted to talk about terrorism, and now don't want to talk about the war because they say they don't want to scare their kids. But their kids need to know these things because I call it a fact of life for the 21st century.
Yeah.
They're uncomfortable conversations, awkward conversations, but they're facts of life. And just like you teach kids about sex, you have to teach them about what's happening in their world. And you have to get them to express, first of all, to tell you what they know, what they think they know, ask their questions, and express their feelings. Because otherwise they just stuff it down, and then that comes out later on in some kind of psychological disorder. Also, I learned a very interesting thing when I was in Israel helping people cope with terrorism. And that is, of course, they've had more years of this. They're more used to terrorists all around them. But I realized how it is that they have such resilience as compared to America. And one of the major ways is because they have so much love. I mean, that's like a valued um, condition to be so selfless and loving towards your family, towards your friends, towards the people you work with, um, and that is what makes, and certainly towards their country. And
Mhm.
not that all of them love Netanyahu, but they certainly are. Well, I think he's great. I mean, I think Netanyahu and Trump are saving the world, and nobody is appreciating them. And hopefully people will eventually realize that. But anyhow, but they care so much about their country, and so we don't have that as much here in this country. Families are getting estranged. You know, they fight over politics. They don't get invited to holidays because of politics, things like that. Um, and and we're just not as, so the families are falling apart more. Of course, the whole trans thing, you know, and teachers and keeping secrets and from parents, and we're in so many different ways the family is falling apart, and we have to put in the work to hold the family together and make it stronger. I say that the silver lining to terrorism is that it can teach us that we have to build stronger nests for our
Mm.
families.
Agreed. Yeah, I like that. You know, you said a couple of things that I think are important there. Number one, the fact is, it doesn't matter if we are being called, you know, Islamophobes or anything like that. You know, we have to recognize what is happening. We have to recognize that there are differences in cultures, and we have to be okay with that. And we have to categorize things. And you have to understand, okay, where's this person coming from? Who is this? We have to have situational awareness. We have to be self-reliant, and we have to protect ourselves. So ultimately, it's on you if you're raising, you know, children who are going to be oblivious to the way of the world and what happens, and you're putting them in danger if you aren't teaching people to be savvy and to pay attention, look what's happening around them where they go. But what you're saying there in terms of family is, yeah, we got to be strong. You know, you have to raise, you know, tight groups, and I think that that's how we end up being safe.
Yes, how we end up being safe. Yes, absolutely. Um, you know, you made me think of something. Now I just well, I mean, all of this, yes. We need, you know, oh, I know what I was thinking of with what you were saying. Um, One of the things that we're not, that where we're falling apart in this country, and that I would really love to see to do something about, is you know, when I was growing up, and I'm sure, I mean, where most people were growing up who are adults today, um, they had, there was the pledge allegiance to the flag every morning. That's how you started your day. Pledge allegiance to the flag and singing, you know, one or two patriotic songs, and then that was in your homeroom, and then you know, if you were in elementary school or whatever, you may have stayed in that room. But that's how everybody began their day, and that is not happening. I don't have the exact statistics as to how many schools, what percentage of schools it's not happening in, but it's way too large, and it's much larger than it used to be. And I think I think we need to go back to that, to teach kids. You know, it wasn't only patriotism, but it was, you're standing there singing with your classmates, and it brings the class together. It brings the kids together. And that's, talk about nests. You know, kids are bullying each other, and there's all kinds of problems in school these days. But that, when you start off, you know, thinking about, yes, we're really lucky to live in this country and we appreciate our country. I mean, it just starts you off on the day in a good frame of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I wish we, returned to that everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Instead, you know, teachers are teaching their version of history, and and it doesn't include, you know, the truth very much.
Well, and I think that's the description there. You know, we have run from the truth. We are not, we're not confronting the truth, and we're it's that idea that Elon Musk and others have talked about with that suicidal empathy, where you're
Yeah.
not willing to speak the truth, call things out for what they are because you're afraid of what the perception might be, or you might hurt people's feelings. Um, I'm sorry, there are some terrible cultures out there that believe terrible things that we need to wholesale reject here in America. The nice thing about America is we can invite wonderful people here who share the values that we have, who want to become Americans, and they can bring awesome parts of their culture here, but the rest of it, leave it at home or throw it away because we're not interested in sexually mutilating children and other things that happen in some of these other cultures. We're not interested in having rape gangs here and other things that are happening like they are in the UK. We're just not interested in that. We need to be willing to call that stuff out.
And our media, our mainstream media, of course, they select what they want to have on it. And they don't show very much about what's happening in Europe, don't show anything at all, really. Um, and and so people don't realize what is happening in countries where they have been overrun by radical Islamists, and how, you talk about the rape gangs. I mean, England, of all places, that we America is like closest to England. I mean, we came from there, and to see sort of this center of democracy fall in these, putting people in jail if they put stuff on the internet. That's says something about the invaders, the radical migrant invaders. I mean, England has
Wow.
just UK has just lost the plot, and so it's people need to see that. I mean, you can find it on the internet. You can see what's happening in some of these other countries. And what I used to talk about on my show, I used to talk about on the Terrorist Therapist podcast, I used to talk about different attacks that there were wherever they were. And so like in England and France, and but they were like once in a, they started out being once in a blue moon. And now it's like a daily occurrence. And yes, these rape gangs. I mean, to imagine a country like that, or any European country, allowing that kind of thing. I mean, it's the worst in England, but it's. I mean, I think if people had more of an idea that this is what's in our future. This isn't so far away. It's across an ocean, but really, it's not that far away. And because of all the people here who think that would be great. So so yes, this is more imminent than people want to believe.
Yeah, and it's more dangerous than what people want to believe. And so I think we have to approach this with our eyes wide open. I think we have to get back to the values being the center of what we do. I think we need to have high expectations for people who come over here. I'm excited to see what the Trump administration is doing. Our military in strength was down in the pits. Pete Hegseth and under his leadership, that's changing now. We're seeing recruitment efforts come back up. We're becoming strong again. Trump has changed the world order in a very, very positive way already by letting people know we're not going to be messed with anymore, and doing things that frankly should have been done decades ago. I mean, Iran and that regime has been an antagonist of ours all over the place, and a supporter of terrorism all over the place, a supporter of destabilization even online. And people, I think, don't always realize how much Iran has done that with their bot farms and all of those sort of things. And so to see some of this stuff, real decisive action happening, it's brilliant and it's beautiful. So I'm optimistic, but we have to be cautious and we have to be careful, and yeah, prepare your kids and your families for what is out there, and let's quit walking around with rosy glasses on.
Yes. The whole thing with ICE, uh, I did a diagnostic in single quotes, diagnostic classification of the people who were attacking ICE. And the number one diagnosis that I think most of them have is Trump derangement syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And because the ICE agents were the present embodiment, facing them, they represented Trump to the people who were attacked. And then there were people who were caught up in their celebrity worship of celebrities who were putting out all this anti-ICE propaganda, with the Grammys, and then we just had the Oscars. I mean, I used to watch those shows. I used to enjoy those shows. And now it's just like, and I'm not alone, the numbers of people who are watching these award shows are going down, 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 because they're not really just about giving awards for art. Well, in a lot of ways, for artistic quality. It's spouting politics, it's spouting what they want you to believe. And it just gets to be, where are they? What makes them an expert on these things? They just get enjoyment out of saying all these outrageous kinds of things because they have a big, the Oscars, that's a huge worldwide platform. So it's just it's gotten old. And I think a lot of people are realizing it, it's one thing you can laugh at some of the jokes, but you don't have to. You can laugh at the jokes without believing that they are true. Jimmy Kimmel is a good example of that. He took advantage of being in the spotlight. He spread some of the things that he said on his show. He now said them at the Oscars. Things about the Melania documentary. But I actually think it helped her documentary because without him talking about, not everybody knew that it had gone on streaming,
Mm-hmm.
And when he was making all these funny jokes about it, it woke up a lot of people to, oh, really? I can watch it on my stream now. So I think it kind of backfired to some degree, but it's actually that kind of I was talking about Trump derangement syndrome. That kind of brings me to, if you want to talk about it, I have been working for a year now. This is March. Yes, I started last March. I can't believe it's been a year. Putting together a proposal for a diagnostic classification of Trump derangement syndrome, like a serious proposal. When he was in office the first time, people would laugh sometimes, oh yeah, you've got Trump derangement syndrome, but it wasn't a serious thing. Mm-hmm. Now it's a serious thing.
Oh, it's a real thing too. I've heard people, they will go absolutely out of their mind about Trump if his name comes up. And if, of course, you press them on certain things, or you can even show where they have said things in the past to support actions that Trump has now taken or things that he has now done. I think he's the one that said it, or somebody else did. He could cure cancer.
Yes.
And the Trump derangement syndrome people would be furious about it, and right. They describe to it, evil motives. They'd poo-poo it. They cannot help themselves. I've watched people get red in the face when his name comes up and absolutely lose their minds. It is a real thing. He is a builder, and he's built skyscrapers in half of these people's heads. It's unbelievable how much time they devote towards their hatred of him. It's wild.
Yes. Well, I have defined it as an irrational, quasi-psychotic hatred of anything Trump, resulting in rage and over-the-top efforts to destroy him and his work. And it expands to include J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Melania, even Barron. And I divided it into mild, moderate, and severe. And I have real life examples that people will recognize of each of these levels. And, it is a real, and it's serious. because I mean, people like, let's take the people who went out and started destroying Teslas, for example.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, people. There is actual actions. In other words, besides what's going on somebody's head when they, you mention his name, as you said, and they kind of just explode. But people have done real actions. They've also been doxing supporters of Trump. I mean, these are dangerous things. You can get killed if you get doxed, with the police coming to your house, being told that there's some crime going on in your house. They come with their guns, and but inadvertently, people can get killed. Um,
Oh yeah,
and
and
so,
by the way, I mean, folks that are that committed to that level of hatred would excuse violent behavior as long as it was against Trump or a Trump supporter, and we've had plenty of examples of that. I mean, that's what a lot of the even the recent trans shooters and things like that. It's that same level of, oh no, it's okay because it's against Trump or against the MAGA movement and all these haters and all that stuff. And of course, they're making up great fiction in their heads, and have created false narratives about all kinds of things that Trump believes, or we believe in the MAGA or America First type of movements. I mean, it is a bizarre psychopathy.
and there are different reasons why people develop this. It starts out in some people. It starts out when they're children, and they, everything. I'm Freudian, so everything starts out in your childhood, right? Um, and so if some people have perhaps overly harsh parents, or they have problems with authority figures, starting with their parents, that could be part of it. Also, people tend to blame their own dissatisfaction with their own life on Trump. That,
Sure.
like, somehow all of it, whatever is wrong in my life, I would have more money. I'd have
Or the Jews now. I mean, that's why we've seen this rise in anti-Semitism. I mean, I've had friends that have gotten caught up in that, where now all of a sudden they're saying some of the most terrible anti-Semitic things, and it's a and the reason they haven't made it in life is because of the Jews. I mean, how did we get to that in the world again?
Yes, yes. Obviously, that's, yes, a big concern. Um, it is like pre-Hitler, or in Hitler times. It is getting, and that is getting to be, where getting to be, we're getting used to it, too
Yeah.
comfortable with it. Um, and then there are some men who, with Trump derangement syndrome, who um, with men with low self-esteem, because they look at Trump and he's an alpha male, and he has all the stereotypically great things that you're supposed to have as a man, right? He has a lot of money, he has a lot of power, he has a beautiful wife, um, has a great job, all these things. And so some men look at that and they think, well, that's not fair, I don't have that. And then the women, of course, the biggest Trump haters are white, college educated women who have problems with men.
Hmm.
And, originally the pussy hats.
Yeah,
Um,
I've experienced some of those weirdos. Yeah, it's amazing, and they also put ice in their white wine. They're the ones that are all into all of this stuff, and it's um, and the seething hatred behind their eyes. I was here in Nashville. I went and I got a glass of wine and a steak at the local bar here, alone, and there were a couple of women sitting next to me, and they were going off on some of the stuff. And of course, I couldn't help myself because I debate is my love language. I just dropped a little grenade of a comment into their thing, and you would have been amazed to see the reaction. And I'm really good at diplomacy and say, well, that's not quite true. Have you considered this? And if someone is infected with that Trump derangement syndrome thing, there's no amount of reasonable conversation possible.
right, right. Now, what I am suggesting, part of why I want to get it into the DSM is because that way, if it's official, first of all, insurance companies look to the numbers, the code numbers for the different diagnoses in terms of reimbursement. Like if you have this, you get this. I mean, it's not necessarily a great way of doing it, but anyway, so people might be able to get reimbursed for treatment for Trump derangement syndrome. And also, it's a language. It's the language that therapists use to talk to each other based upon like these diagnoses in the DSM. So, so this would be a way that, so this would be, perhaps it would help in terms of getting them payment for treatment, because they all need treatment. Now, the treatment isn't, as you were just suggesting, doesn't work. It isn't having a logical conversation with them about, well,
No.
don't you like this that Trump did, and he did this executive order, and doesn't that help you like you could find things for each person that might be more helpful for them, like a hot button for them that he's helping. But it still wouldn't work. All they would do would be to leave therapy. So what I suggest is individual and couples and family therapy, where you are looking at the behaviors, not trying to convince anybody that Trump is wonderful, but just to see what your behavior is doing to you in your life for the individuals, or is doing to your marriage, because people are getting divorced over this, doing to your family, how it's hurting your kids, that kind of thing. And just trying to, to shape the behaviors. Because I don't think they are ready. I mean, some people might eventually be ready for to look at like some of the things that I was saying before, the people who become who get this disorder, who develop this disorder because they had problems with authority figures when they were younger, or they were bullied. Some people are particularly sensitive to Trump because they remind him of the bully on the playground, that kicked sand in their face when they were in grade school. But so there are ways to sort of look at that stuff if somebody wanted to look at it. But in the meantime, just to get them to realize how they're acting and what they're reacting to, and what maybe something in them is causing this, but not to I mean, as soon as they feel like you're trying to get them to change their mind, they're out of there. They don't need to.
That's exactly right. No, it's true. Well, where can we follow you? What can we do to support your work? And I'd love to hear that up in the next few minutes here.
Okay, sure. Well, I have a bunch of websites. One of them is most relevant for what we've been talking about is terroristtherapist.com. Terroristtherapist.com. And on that website, I have videos that I created, music videos that I created for the anniversaries of 9/11 and 10/7. And it really, lays it out with like how Israel is the canary in the coal mine, what the terrorists really planning on doing, all this, everything you ever wanted to know about terrorism, but didn't ask. And so, and also in that vein, my latest book about terrorism is Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. And the first half of the book is for grown-ups, how to answer questions, the most frequently asked questions that kids have, how to look at your own feelings when you talk to them about terrorism. And then the second half of the book is a picture book with like all the basics about terrorism in a way, in a not too scary way, in a way that they can digest it. And then what else? I have a website, expertwitnessforensic.psychiatrist.com, because I do that work. And of course, Twitter is at Dr. Carol MD. So it's at DrCarole MD.
I love it. Well, listen, thank you for coming on. I hope you do get that in the DSM-5. That would be great. I think it is a real thing. And I love what you talked about. And my biggest takeaway is really a lot of what I've been talking about for a long time is we need to be strong as a culture. We need to circle the wagons and really, protect ourselves from, again, what has been historically the way of the world. There is danger out there, and unfortunately, we imported a lot of it here to our country, and it's going to be here for a while. And we need to win, and we need to grow strong again. And again, I'm optimistic about the future. I think it looks bright, and I love what Trump is doing to reshape the world order in our favor. And I think he's doing a good job. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, Carol.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it as well.
All right. Well, to God be the glory, and we are out.